we will continue with the last talk in this section, which will be by Professor Rimantas Astrauskas, who is Associate Professor for Ethnomusicology and Musicology here at LMTA and also at Vilnius University. He has studied here. He has been guest lecturer in several Scandinavian cities and also in London. He's working for the UNESCO. And he is co-author of an anthology on Lithuanian pianola music, if I'm right. And he will now talk to us about a very famous problem, the problem of harmonization of folk tunes, a problem which is in every culture where folk tunes are collected and played, and on Čiurlionis' position to this question. Please.
Okay, the topic is relevant to the Čiurlionis' relationship with traditional music. But this topic was very well explored by Vytautas Landsbergis, Jadvyga Čiurlionytė, Algirdas Ambrazas, Jonas Bruveris, Rokas Zubovas. So my profession is, and my specialization is folk music, but I wanted to touch this subject in some different way, just to show how using traditional tunes, Čiurlionis solved two different, in opposition, problems. Just, I will see. Now, I will show you. And my topic is not to deal with the folk music of Čiurlionis and its impact. But somehow we shall see this problem also. We shall touch this problem. But now, you see, after large experiments in modern music language, Čiurlionis somehow turned his attention to very simple objects of harmonization of folk tunes. This turn could be explained that at this time he was working with a choir, with Lithuanian choirs in Warsaw and later in Vilnius, and it was big demand of such materials. So choirs wanted to sing Lithuanian songs. And Čiurlionis somehow answered this demand. But he was educated in modernism centers, some in Leipzig and in Warsaw. And so it was very big and different issues, I would say, how to combine simplicity of these songs with very complicated and sophisticated compositional means. I have chosen very interesting for myself and somehow not very well known some I would not say some methodologies, but just some points in these methodologies. They could be useful to explain some very interesting questions. And my object, what I am based on is a little bit on Tarasti semiotics. It's very shame that we have no Tarasti here, because he was is very good friend of Lithuania, and he knows Čiurlionis music, knows Čiurlionis paintings, so he could not come. Yeah, it's pity. The second, what I am based on his Grimasian, they say débrayage. Débrayage is somehow atsitraukimas, skaidimas, if we translate. And Derrida's deconstruction also could be helpful to explain how Čiurlionis is dealing with the musical language, also, and going to the modernism in different ways, using different techniques, and succeeding in different ways. And here's one starting point that Tarasti said that, okay, Čiurlionis was modernist, and he was one of the pioneers of modernism. And even before Arnold Schoenberg's atonal works and before Kandinsky and Chagall was destroying the boundaries of perspective and image in his watercolors. It is precisely this main aspiration of modernism in various arts that could be called débrayage or disconnection. And I took this idea, that just wanted to check, is it working in the harmonization of folk tunes by Čiurlionis? And this means that in all text, and especially in some languages, this shows how composer is going from the center, how he's destroying the understanding of the centra. And in Tarasti's explanation that by center, we don't mean that it is some geographical point. This could be also used and could be helpful if we wanted to know Čiurlionis' life in Berlin and his commentaries about this. But it's not here what we are thinking. In Grimasian semiotics, central is somehow related with the time, place, and personality. So I took this aspect of this theory. Sorry, we can show all this. Now, I would like also to mention that Derrida's deconstruction method also could be useful here, because it's very contemporary, and according to Derrida's deconstruction, is a critical approach to analyzing text. But if we mean music also is somehow text, so we could apply it, and challenging the idea of single absolute meaning. It focuses on exposing the hierarchical oppositions, like speech versus writing, or presence versus absence, inherent in language and thought, showing how these oppositions are unstable and can be subverted. And the construction argues that meaning is never fixed, or rather visional and endlessly open to new interpretation. Yeah, because language has also these contradictions. So it could be also explained why we are not having possibilities to save everything. Say, oh, what we know about Čiurlionis, everything is finished. But we never reach such point. They explain why it is. Now, some citations you will see not one time here today, but I saw they are also very important. And here is about relationship of folk music and future of Lithuanian music. And this responsibility and also it means that our Lithuanian music could be constructed from all these songs. And I also wanted to check this point. How he starts this movement from the center, or how he starts to destroy this feeling of the center. So we see even this famous composition, only 3 times we have listened today. You see two tonalities, or ambiguity of tonalities. The first step. Another step is that in folk music, if you see the first up line, it's an example from, it's a voice of folk tune. And also you can see some modal deviations. And there are a lot of examples of these modal deviations. They are very typical for Dzūkija style, where Čiurlionis was living. And especially in rye reaping songs, when you never know which tone is the basic, because he always moving from one tone to another tone, and this deviation is like a stable element. And remember, please, this example is very simple, harmonizations, and Čiurlionis step into the tradition of very simple, and we shall see how he developed these things and what will be the finish. And you see very simple voices, just few tones, and like exercise. And now we shall see Čiurlionis, what he's doing. It's at the first sight, it's very simple. But when we see, it's a modulation inside, how the central is moving. I know, perhaps we could listen some example. Number 19, if you could. You know, it's a very... Let's go. So we shall see now different means applied by Čiurlionis, also to come further and to destroy this feeling of the center. But here is a big problem. The one is that folk tunes are usually related with the place, with time, and with the people. But modern means they are opposite. They were seeking to destroy these feelings also. And Čiurlionis is combining these elements. But it will be in the next 2 comments. Here is a typical harmonization. Nothing is very, very new, but we can see some alterations. Alterations also add some color, and in diatonical style, alterations is something new. Yeah, but it's very typical, and I would say, nothing new here. Here I wanted to show you very typical example which shows Čiurlionis' technique. So how he uses voices. It's also nothing very special, but very organical decision. All the song is the first voice, and everywhere in Čiurlionis' harmonization song is not changed. So always organic and always in an upper voice or in a lower voice also. Yeah, you know, this tune is very popular. Now we are going, what Čiurlionis doing the next step, I would say. So I made some hierarchy, how he is going a little bit aside. Here we can see a contrapunct. Very typical for Čiurlionis that in upper voices, he is reproducing folk tunes, two voices of tunes. But third, the bass line is quite new and typical something new, not related, not in a close relation with the folk tune structure. But if we go further, we can see some elements, some triads. Here is very simple interpretation as tonal chords, just with a few additional marks, few alteration marks. And turn attention, please, to the bass. Yeah, it's typical example of katabasis, rhetorical figure, and also Čiurlionis adding to the diatonical tune chromatical sequences, and this is very typical. So we can find, I would say, dozen examples when these chromatic lines are put into the second voice, or is combined with diatonic lines. And in his very famous variations, Begit Boreale, he uses, I would say, one time diatonical scale, the second time chromatical scale, or just mixing together these. But we know that diatonics and chromatics are two different systems. So he's combining this in a very organic way. Here we can see some examples. You see, the first voice is tune, main tune, Subatos Vakarėlį. It's on Saturday evening, famous song, but two different also models how to, I would say, go further from this central and the feeling of the center. It means, what are these means is chromatical lines, and in bass part we can see isorhythmics. It means repeated rhythmical figures, and they also somehow destroy what we want to hear here. In bass line usually is a tonal centers, and here we see some movement and very sketches tonal understanding. Yeah. And here we are going back, and one of the first experiments of Čiurlionis with folk music also very simple. What we see is bourdon, repeated bass. Also, it means, I just wanted to say that for me, it's somehow a little bit resemble Polish dance. Tam, ta, ta, tam, ta, ta, tam, ta, tam, ta, ta, tam, ta, tam, yeah. But also we can interpret like a movement. Just nothing more is bourdonic repetition. But here we can see contrapuncts. Contrapuncts adding different meaning and somehow pointed different sounds. They started to be, 2-3 different points on which the music is based. But here we can find also very interesting example, especially on the second variation. You can see here that 3 tonalities actually is A minor, G major, and C minor. Yeah? And C minor and S in a very, I would say, distant relationship. So this is not very common in folkloric, and especially and I would say it's a very unusual decision what he made, and nearly comes to the Bartók style of polytonality. Yes, it's nearly, but it's episodic, but feeling that he's experimenting with bitonality very often, and here is polytonality. So sometimes in some episodes, we could listen this example. Please, 37, jeigu galima. They are very short. You can see 3 tonalities singing at the same time. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we have seen some very interesting combination of different means of expression. But now, the most exciting thing is is Čiurlionis experiments with artificial modes. And these modes here, we can find this first tune somehow hidden, but it's the same tune. Yeah, you see the folkloric. Yeah, and what is in accompaniment? Accompaniment is artificial mode. Yeah, it's an octatonic mode. Octatonic is something new, but Čiurlionis explored and all possibilities of also this mode, and somehow also goes beyond these principles. But just I wanted to show you that some melodic and some parts, also you can see in a fourth bar, the same repetition is a ta-ta-ta-ra-ram, ta-ta-ta-ra-ram, and rhythmical and also melodical development. And here I want to show you how this octatonical tune, octatonical scale, it means hemitone and tone and hemitone row, strictly applied, but it is constructed also from the structure of the tune itself. As in the tune itself also we have the same tone-semitone relationship. And this shows that even if Čiurlionis applied some innovations, he also applied these innovations knowing something and taking something from the folkloric materials. And this is quite new, and I would say thanks to George Kenaway, who explored very well how these tendencies to use octatonical scales have seen in compositions, for example, Rimsky-Korsakov, Ravel, also in Liaudies, and Scriabin, Feinberg, and other composers. And what is particularly interesting, that in the places where he is not strictly applied this octatonical scale, in these places he is using mistakes, I would say, but it's not awkward. It's not mistake in a sense, but it's, I would say, it's going beyond the limitations of this scale, because we know from the dodecaphonic experience and from these artificial scales experiences that if composer will use, Stravinsky also used, if composer uses these scales, the music becomes, you see, the same. You don't have many possibilities to be very, you see, particular, to show your individuality, as every system has its limitations. And I would say, where Čiurlionis is not keeping very strictly these principles, in these places, he is very Lithuanian. And here we could say that he comes beyond the limitations. Yeah. We can listen also the next preludium written also at the same time was, what's the number? Yeah, also uses the same trichord, I would say, but a little bit different way. Just 25, jeigu galima. Also very short. Another combination, octatonic. I'm going nearly to the end, yeah. Yes, it was. And here we see that the same octatonic mode, you see, was used as a theme for Fugetta. And here we are having some fragment, preludium, which I would say has a relationship with his symphonic poem, the Jūra. Yeah. Dabar tą sekantį vaizdėlį tai pasakysiu. Dvidešimt trečias. 23. Yes, this example is a very good illustration how could be used and how could be combined different ideas starting from octatonic scale, folkloric material, and also combinations, polyphonical elements. Yeah. So here we have conclusions. So traditional tunes harmonized by Čiurlionis is an important part of composer's musical heritage, revealing genesis of its ideas and innovations of musical language. Harmonization revealed two oppositional tendencies, an attempt to construct foundation of national musical style as particular musical center, and following modernist idea, looking for the new musical language, deconstructing tonal center in favor of the new means of expression. And Čiurlionis succeeded in overcome these issues. I touched only modal aspect of musical composition, but the same could be applied also to formal structure, to rhythmics, and other parts of his music. So everything you could see here. And I would like to end with some conclusions on Rokas citations, few citations early. So Čiurlionis piano music plays a part with the most important, interesting composers of the first decade of the 20th century. From the great cultural centers of the world, Čiurlionis opened the door in his piano miniatures to those spaces that would become the main compositional systems of the 20th century shortly after his death. That's true. And here's a George, famous, a short-lived Lithuanian composer who experiments with octotonics in the first year of the 20th century, still an extraordinary phenomenon. And here, everything is. So I'm finished. Thank you for your attention.
I would like to ask you a question. All these examples which you have shown us, there's always, or almost always, a strong tendency towards chromaticism or octatonism. There's not much tendency towards the ancient modes, toward ancient diatonic modality, it seems to me.
No, they are. You see the model, some maybe Čiurlionis took ideas from folklore, a lot of things he took, and also from melodies. Because in our folk melodies we have a system of you see there were narrow tone systems and 3 tones as a model, and Čiurlionis also talks in many his citations that we should base our Lithuanian traditional music style on these oldest melodies because they are very typical for Lithuanian music. So, no, this.
Well,
sorry.
I only ask this because I know other harmonizations of folk tunes, for example, in France, which go to a very different direction, I think, which try to reconstruct a sort of neo-modality, which is, this is much more complicated, more complex, I would say.
We have episodes could be somehow related to these old Greek modes. For example, some Doric elements or some Phrygic, but very rare.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there some more questions, please?
Thank you so much. I would like to combine some part of the keynote that we heard before and with you to give you both right. The second last example that we heard with the fragments of the folk tune and underneath the whatever scale it is, if you check the manuscript, there are 2 different pencils.
Yeah.
So it shows even optically, or he was crazy in writing 2 seconds with one pencil and 2 seconds with another pencil, or really he wrote one hand fast fully with one pencil and then maybe even the next day or who knows when the other hand. So this kind of this shows that he was working in a very innovative way.
Yeah, it's like a joke. Maybe his sister added.
No, that was both the handwriting of Čiurlionis. I can prove this and Darius also. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.